this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this video that I saw on TikTok of this woman who's talking about cisgender privilege, and she take offense to me calling her a woman, but she clearly presents that way. But I guess she's identifies as they them, but I don't care. But the way that she talks about cisgender privilege, it just reminds me of some other things that I've been saying about it, and it's and the whole issue how people identify one way or another, and so people are convinced that these particular experiences that these people have are in their certain subgroup, and it's like no, other people can feel this the same way. So you'll see when we get into it. Also, the View talked a bit about drag and different places, and then they went on into guns kill people, not drag, and just a weird rant. We'll get in that to the at the end, but just such nonsense from that show on the left, and just things that are just blatantly not true. So we'll get into that as well. Also, there's some interesting beef going on in the DC EU extended universe. Everything is getting scrapped because of James Gunn, and he's making his own thing, which I'm not fond of, but it is what it is. But I saw Shazam last night, and then I saw Zachary Levi. People were sharing something that he put on, I guess, his Instagram about The Rock. So I think it's interesting. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mention it, especially since I just saw the movie yesterday, and I'll try not to get into any spoilers or anything like that. But yeah, I just think it's a fascinating tidbit of information, and we don't just talk about the news; we talk about pop culture and other stuff as well. So before we jump into everything, please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. that you guys can check out. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Cost to stream, run my website, all that good stuff. So if you would like to support, you can do that in that kind of way. Whether it's a small gift of $10, $20, or you can do more, 50, 100, etc. God bless you for whatever you can do. Otherwise, I thank you guys for liking, for subscribing, for just talking in the chat during the live. All those things really do help. I thank you for watching stuff back. All that stuff really does help as well, and you've definitely helped me to grow my channel and grow Black Tea, but we'd like to grow some more. So thank you for all of your continued support. Check out different merch at the store, like the "I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For" shirt. I actually made that after Gina Carano's situation. After she got ousted, we got the Be Better Not Better. March is reading month. I'll mention my book, Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear, which I wrote this book in the midst. This is my only nonfiction book that I currently have published right now. I started writing this in the midst of the pandemic. I thought it was Star Wars Day, and I was thinking about Yoda's line, "Fear is a path to the dark side," and I just saw how all these people were so afraid, and they gave themselves permission to be tyrannical monsters to each other, just the rudest, most awful people. And there haven't really been any apologies. I mean, there's been some, but not really. And not only have there not really been apologies from people, there have been people who just insist that we just get over it and accept apologies without people really extending apologies for their bad behavior. But I would like to see you know I guess apologies isn't really that important. I'd rather just see mechanisms put into place so that the government and et cetera can't actually terrorize people the way that they did. But um, they know that they can, so they will at some point in the future. I maybe it'll be again in my lifetime, or when I'm older, like really old or gone, but who knows? You can only put so much trust in the government, and they just did awful things during the pandemic. But anyway, it's not centric to the pandemic, but it's just about not letting fear overtake you, how to get over it. So that's the nonfiction faith focused book. But the rest of my books, I'll show a picture with me and my 15 that I have published right there. So there you go. FYI, I will be at Motor City Comic Con this year. So if you guys are local or if you want to drive and plan to go that way anyway, I will be there at that convention. And also, you guys can check out, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, which is available for pre-order. So I do have a meme for you guys today. And this is, I saw the Right to Bear Memes had posted this. So if you recall this original picture here, it's from the last day of Obama in office, and his staff just looks so miserable. Um, and I always just thought it was funny how just upset they were. I don't know if it was the last day in office, but it was after the election, and so Obama was going to be president. Trump, was going to be president, and so they were just pretty bummed out. But this is a member of the press corps who has been giving them some heck. So this happened, I think, last week, where he spoke out against the press secretary and was like, "Hey, you don't pick on me for questions. It's been a very long time since he gotten any." And the press just went nuts on him. They just really did, and spoke out against him and like apologized on his and what was crazy about it, I'll show you the clip in a second, but you have a testimony here that said, "When I was a White House reporter during the Trump years, all of the people shushing Simon scream like banshees during press briefing. When they don't get called on, it's an attack on the First Amendment. When others don't and protest as they did, then it's a violation of decorum." And yeah, they were like yelling decorum and decorum. And I'm sure we remember the Trump years. They weren't that long ago. Jim Acosta karate chopping the intern or whoever. I don't know if they're an intern, but the girl who was trying to move the mic on and mic to someone else. And he's like, it wasn't like I'm trying to take your arm off, but it was like, "Ma'am, I still have the mic." And so there was a lack of decorum dealing with Trump and, his press room. I think Trump had good press secretaries, and I do think they got, Sean Spicer was so aggressive and high energy when he first came in there, but I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders was an improvement, and then you just had Kaylee, who came in, was a beast. She was so good, so much better than anyone that Biden has had, and just really knew how to deal with them. So Trump had some good picks there, but Biden does not have good picks with his press secretary. Jen was a lot better, but Jen was not good, and their current one is not good at all. Diversity hire. I don't care if you're offended by me saying that; it's obviously true. But here's the moment.
You can't keep discriminating against some people in the briefing room because you don't like them, you don't like them.
So you have a choice.
No,
you have a choice. You have a choice.
A number of people in the briefing room, and I'm saying that that's not right. This is not China. This is not Russia. This is the United States. This is the White House.
No.
It's been 7 months. I sent you
The rest of us are here too, pal.
It's been 7 months. You guys have not done anything for me.
If you have grievances, you should bring them to her later.
I have done that. I've done that. All my emails have been ignored.
And the press corps is tired of dealing with this.
It isn't just about you, Simon.
I understand that you get questioned all the time and you don't understand what it is to sit here for 8 months and being discriminated against. I understand that you're in the front row and you feel comfortable and you get questions all the time. But there are people in the back who don't get any questions.
Don't make assumptions about what the rest of us do. Mind your manners when you're in here. If you have a problem, you bring it up afterwards. But you are impinging on everybody in here who's only trying to do their job.
Okay, thank you. I'm saying that you shouldn't discriminate against some people because you don't agree with their question. You're offended by your question.
You made your point.
We all heard it.
So yeah, they just went ape on him. I love the lady. He was like, "Decorum!" I'm sorry if that was really loud in your ear. It was really loud in mine. Yeah, I don't think that's how you do decorum. Just screaming out decorum. I don't know if there's a rule book or somewhere, but I just don't think that's how you accomplish it. So yeah, they would not yell at someone else who was upset about Trump not calling on them, and people would be so upset when Trump wouldn't call on them, which they I don't know, from observing all the times I did, it seemed like they, did a pretty wide range on people. Now, there'd be people from like more right kind of organizations, not like normal mainstream press, that if they called on someone like Daily Caller, let's say, people would flip out. Um or like Town Hall or something, like they'd be like, oh, they're picking these folks, like how dare they legitimize them in any kind of way. um Despite the fact that they have some pretty left wing crazy people who would like April Ryan said some bonker stuff, man. Anyway, yeah, I thought that was funny at the time, and I see memes surfacing around him. It actually, Simon had tweeted out a picture of himself. He's like, oh, another day at the White House. It's kind of like, oh, I got to deal with these people again. So I don't know if he's about to become a meme legend, a meme hero, but I thought, I guess at this point it was worth sharing and talking with you guys about it. So anyway, let's move on. So I saw this video on TikTok of this woman talking about cisgender privilege, and there's just a lot of different ridiculous comparisons in here that we'll get to piece by piece. So we will just go through that. Before I start, I do want to note that there does seem to be an escalation in the Trump DeSantis um blows now, and DeSantis, well, I there's a video circulating around. I don't know if the interview has aired yet with DeSantis and was it Pierce Morgan? It was somebody that he just talked about Trump chaotic style. Now I think you have to actually watch stuff because Pierce does some fantastical editing, which that's just how business is, I guess, with that kind of stuff. So if he's shooting shots now, I think it's a little early, but if he is, it's all out war from here, I guess. But we can cover that more later. I know you've been talking about it the past couple days, but just wanted to put that on your radar. So anyway, let's watch this video together, and we'll go through the silliness of this whole ideology.
Your privilege. Welcome back to my privilege series. I'm Marla. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a therapist and educator. And if you're interested in more, follow along. Everything is labeled in my feed. So the whole thing about...
So as she's a therapist about being polyamorous. And if you're like, what is that? That's people who don't ascribe to like monogamous relationships, as in like you pick a partner and you're with a partner. So she advises people and educates them on that issue. So I saw a couple of her videos, and they're interesting. So so it looks like some people on the right have seen some of her more interesting videos and have begun like replying to them, and that's how I found this video. The ratio from likes to comments is pretty stunning on this video, but let's keep going.
About privilege is that often when we have a privilege, we are unaware of the way that we benefit from the privileges that we have just built into social structure. The other side of privilege looks like oppression. Let's also be clear that just because you might have cisgender privilege, I'm not saying that there aren't other ways in the world that you are oppressed. I'm talking specifically about the cisgender or transgender markers of identity. So please don't come talking to me about all the other ways that you're oppressed. That can be true, and you can have cisgender privilege.
So I just do want to note that I do believe that there can be certain privileges, but people always talk about like, well, she's going to go into cisgender privilege, but a lot of times we'll hear about white privilege, and I'm like, there's like people do have privileges for being different minorities. That's why, I mean, there are people who pretend to be black, who are Mindy Kaling's brother. I think that's how you say her last name. Who was like on The Office. Her brother pretended to be black for at least in his mind, it was for different college benefits. And you have other people who pretend to be Native American. I wasn't gonna say Elizabeth Warren. There's other people, but yeah, she pretended to be Native American, or at least played up her family history a lot. And it is possible that there were stories within her family that she really, really, elevated, but some of the stuff didn't make sense. Like, but she's very she's one of the whitest people you can find. So Pocahontas, with Elizabeth Warren. But there are other people who have pretended to be Native American because there's different privileges that people can get from being associated with different minority sets. It's just true. So some things that people complain about with privilege though is just life, and you're going to see a lot of examples within the stuff that she's talking about. And I have an article about Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter. One of the things that they wanted to do is dismantle cisgender privilege, and I have a link in the article that goes to a big list about cisgender privilege, and the stuff they list is really dumb. And the person who compiled the list, was interviewed by I think Katie Couric. So they, someone mainstreamed them a bit. So um, a lot of the things that people complain about that these groups want to dismantle, or at least Black Lives Matter wanted to dismantle. They didn't say specifically on their What We Believe page the things that they wanted to dismantle, but it just seems like they want to dismantle society at large, the systems that we have that have been in place, and they want to wave their fist in the air and complain about just life, you know. But uh, there's examples, so we'll get into it.
Cisgender privilege means not having to consider being exhausted physically and emotionally from constantly having to correct people about your gender, about your pronouns, about your name when you're out in the world. This is absolutely exhausting. And if I am just female and a woman, I never have to consider or even think about how freaking exhausted my trans and non-binary counterparts might be in the world.
So what's funny about this, the first video I saw of her, she was in her car. Was picking up her car from an oil change. And the person who helped her, like you guys can see her, you hear her, you probably assume that she's just a woman. Maybe you'd make judgments based on her hairstyle that she's on the left. I don't know. Or maybe you would think that she's just kind of on the edgy side of life. I would assume she's, a later millennial, you can make whatever assumptions you want, but you would just assume that she's a woman. She doesn't identify as a woman. But anyway, the person who gave her car said, here you go, ma'am. And so she's in her car reflecting about him calling her ma'am. And she realizes that he wasn't trying to be impolite or rude to her in any kind of way, but she's struggling within herself whether she wants to, or whether she should take the time to lecture to this stranger that was just trying to be nice to her. And she hasn't misinterpreted his gesture of saying, here you go, ma'am, as him purposely trying to be mean. She acknowledges that he was just being polite. But she's so conflicted because she doesn't know whether she should take the time to lecture a stranger about her preferred pronouns. So when she says that you have cisgender privilege because you don't have to have all these struggles about your pronouns, that's a choice, bruh. It's totally on you. It is totally on you and your psychosis or your whatever's going on in your mind that you have decided to be so hung up over on your preferred pronouns. That is on you. That is a choice that you have decided to make. And by the way, this sort of same conflict now exists with women who or men, but I mostly see women complain who don't want to be called cis, who don't want to have that category because you're trying to make it a category between cis women and just other women, because you're trying to say that there can be different categories of women who don't have the proper, creations from the gametes and chromosomes, etc. And I know people are going to mention intersex, but like we're not talking about squeezing in people because of mutations or for sliver, okay? XXXY for the sake of the conversation. So they're trying to make a subcategory here, and they don't appreciate it. We just are women, period. And if you're not a woman, you don't belong in here. It's not, there's some cis and there's some people who are something else who still qualify as a woman. You don't. You don't. So there's, and I have a video that's pretty viral of a talking about the origin of it, from, you know, the cisgender taken from cissexual, from some German sexologist. And it is a weird kind of origin from it. We don't want to be called cis. You know, I'm not gonna like have internal struggles at night about it. Like she's sitting in her car saying, should I correct a stranger? You know, but you know, but she put this out on the internet, so we're gonna critique her and criticize her here. But the pronoun thing, I just saw a video from a that she duetted, by the way. So she elevated this particular video. There's this black TikTok creator who says a lot of racial content, like white, negative to white people kind of content. She has a huge channel. And so she was complaining about people who don't agree with pronouns. And so she said, she was like, y'all complain about some grammar and it's not that big of a deal. If you misgender someone and someone says their preferred pronoun, then just get over it, and or just, you know, say okay and then use their pronoun. So her whole attitude was, it's not a big deal, just do what we say. And I'm going to do a reply to this. I'm like, if it's not a big deal, then get over the fact that we won't do what you say. We're going to use the accurate pronouns. Your preferred pronouns can be your problem. But the thing about the preferred pronouns is that, and they're like, it's just a matter of respect. No, it's not a matter of you just want respect from that person you're talking to. Because you would use these pronouns and not really in face-to-face conversation. I'd use her name or whatever. But if I was talking about this woman here, as I am now, if I used her preferred pronouns, I think it's they, maybe they, them, or something. And do I believe that she's not a woman? That's the question. Do I believe that she's not a woman? Absolutely, she's a woman. So they expect you to evangelize something, their self-perception. So the question is, are they the thing that they say? And do you believe that they're the thing that they say? And the answer is no. So it's not that I'm so archaic in my thinking. It's not that I'm so bigoted. It's just that I'm not going to lie for you. Imagine this. Imagine if I told someone, hey, I identify as a size 6. Okay. And I wanted you to believe that about me. You know, I'm not going to work to get there, whatever. I'm there. I believe I am this size. I am skinty, so skinty, slay queen. I'm skinty. And you have to, you know, refer to me as a size 6. And that's how I want you to, when you talk about me to other people, that's how I want you to, you know, push out that image of me. And so if someone said, hey, what does Christina look like? And if you don't tell them that I'm a size 6, then I guess you're a bigot and you just don't understand the world. And and but if you did say that and then someone met me, they'd be like, did they try to catfish me? You know? So it's important to be accurate about things. And you can say, well, what if someone presents a certain way? That stuff goes out the window if someone wants to have a relationship and the parts don't match up and someone can't have babies or something, you know? Gender and sex, they are meaningfully intertwined. As a matter of fact, historically, they've just been used interchangeably. And people are trying to say it's about the roles, etc. Well, there's certain particular roles that are very tied to our biology. Which gender carries the babies? You know? There's some stereotypical things with masculinity and femininity, you know, like girls like pink. He tell that to He-Man, you know, tell that to the 80s. There's certain things that we have in mind that are stereotypical, but these stereotypical things can't just transform you into a woman. And a lot of people have been trying to break away from those stereotypical things, but gender roles, like a lot of them have been historically situated around things that have to deal with biology. And technology and time has changed some things, like the pill and tampons and pads and all sorts of different things that have given women kind of more access to the workspace. But there are still a lot of realities that are rooted in our gender roles that's rooted in biology, etc. Like if we were like, let's get rid of maternity leave because we want to do what's best for the businesses and their bottom line, people be like, women would be like, are you kidding me? We got to take care of our babies. There's some things that are just fact and reality. So back to the point, her saying, you know, it's cisgender privilege that you don't torture yourselves. And whenever time someone misgenders you, which by the way, people can misgender you, even if you're cisgender. I went to Cadoba's one night. It was the winter. I had on a big bulky coat. I had a hat on and whatever. It was late. I was trying to get there before they closed, and I didn't look too great. And I just went there in the massive, I have some pretty big knockers, but it's all covered up with my big coat. And so someone's getting my food and they're like, okay, sir. And they look up and they instantly, after they like see me again, they realize that they made a mistake. And they're like, oh, like shame and whatever on them. And for a hot second, I was like, oh man, that sucks. And then I was like, Christina, you're the one who came out here looking like a hot mess. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, your fault. And it was just like, it's okay. And they continued dipping up my food. It's just really that simple. So if pronouns aren't a big deal, and then you get over it. But torturing yourself in the car because someone did an oil change, it's just crazy. Let's move on.
It's a lot of labor. Cisgender privilege looks like being able to walk safely in the world where I'm not concerned about whether or not I pass as any specific gender or if someone is going to clock me and potentially enact violence against me based on my gender presentation. Again,
that's dumb. I'm sorry. So this doesn't need to be rooted in your gender presentation of what, like, just women all the time go into spaces where they're concerned for their safety. Well, I used to work at the Michigan Republican Party. One day I was just walking, maybe to get something to eat and playing Pokemon Go. And these guys just came up on me. And this is like just downtown Lansing. And I was outnumbered. And they were like aggressively hitting on me, and I don't like to complain about this stuff because I don't know, but at that point in time, like, I feel like I can fight a dude, maybe depending how big they are, but I was outnumbered, and it was unnerving. And so I was about to like take my phone and call my dad, but I'm alone or it's just somebody, so they knew like something was going on. If something happened to me, and I just kind of tried to talk a little bit and like not be too dismissive, but definitely not be interested, and keep walking to a point where I was like a bit safer, and they ended up leaving, but it just happened so suddenly that I was concerned. And there's been other times I've traveled to different places, and just being catcalled is one thing. It's fine. I know some women are like, but there has been a time or two. Like one time it was in, I don't think it was in New York. I think it was Atlanta. I was at a convention center, and I went to go get some food, and some guy like came up on me kind of aggressive, and I was in a town I didn't know, and I was alone. and there was a bit of like, this is uncomfortable. Women feel like that. Women feel like that. So people who don't want women to be armed, like, a gun's an equalizer. So I just want to throw that out there. But women feel like that. So just to be like, oh, it's cisgender privilege because you don't have to worry about your life being in danger from your presentation. That's garbage. That's garbage. Absolute garbage. So people complaining about things that they feel are cisgender privilege, these are things that people can relate to who are cisgender. So trying to just shove it down into, well, because of how they're presenting, and they happen to be trans or something. I I guess if you categorize it it can only be this thing, I guess you can make a point, but to think that other people can't feel that same kind of way is silly. It's a silly thing to complain about.
Cis women, we talked about this already, do not come for me. I'm not up for it. Cisgender privilege means never having to have been excommunicated from the communities and the families and the friend groups that you have felt so safe with for so long in your life, because all of a sudden your gender has changed and maybe your name has changed, etc. Those people just throwing you out of your life, the isolation that comes with changing your gender, is something that as a cis person, you never have to know.
So, this is also not true. Now, maybe for the purpose of changing your gender or your sex or whatever, again, if you categorize it that way, then I guess sure. But do people in general know what it's like to be kicked out and ostracized from their family for not for having a different belief or for changing like tradition or structure or something? Absolutely. There are people who um did you see a viral video? And I'm assuming she didn't literally kick her child out forever, but there was a video after the 2016 election of a black mother, young kids. And I guess there was a school election. And the son voted for Trump in the school election. And so to punish him or to show him teach him a lesson or whatever, she had him pack a suitcase and was kicking him out of the house. And he was just crying and crying and crying. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that video, but that was messed up. But I'm assuming that was just a very harsh lesson that was abusive. But think immediately when she said this, the first thing that popped in my head are people who leave their faiths and then are kicked out of their house. What about like a young Muslim woman or somebody who might have become a Christian and they're kicked out of the house or whatever? That happens to people when they're totally ostracized for leaving their family traditions or whatever. And people can make it out of beliefs, people can do it for political ideologies. So this idea that people who are cis don't know what it's like to be kicked out or pushed out their family, that's crazy. There's people who will cut you off because they'll change and then you don't agree with something that they're doing. What about people who get upset about and cut off their family because they don't agree with who you're marrying? And it doesn't even have to be like of someone of the same sex or someone saying I'm polyamorous. It could just be the family doesn't like who you're marrying and maybe they see something you don't see and it becomes kind of a war and you cut everybody off. Or they cut you off, whatever. So to think that everything revolves around this world of transgenderism and cis privilege, it just doesn't make any sense. So I had an interview on Monday night with a detransitioner, and one thing I brought up, and I mentioned this yesterday, but he's mentioned that when people would ask like, how do you know that you're a woman? And he wouldn't really have an answer for that, where at least originally had answers, but they were all like stereotypical things. And so they're like, well, those are stereotypes. Not all women like this, not all women do this, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And so how do you know that you're a woman? How do you know that you feel like a woman? You can't possibly know that. And so he didn't have an answer. So they like, crack the shell, I suppose. But I said, if people have different feelings about, I feel this way and this is how I think women feel, therefore maybe I'm a woman, that doesn't mean that at all. It just means that men are also capable of having those feelings or those emotions or maybe those inclinations. It doesn't mean that you're a woman. It just means that you have those feelings yourself. So just get out of the narcissism. This whole cisgender privilege thing is silly. And it makes me wonder, what are all the things that Black Lives Matter wanted to dismantle if these are things that qualify as cisgender privilege? What the heck did they want to dismantle? The feeling of being safe? I guess so. If people want to, if being in your bathrooms and you expect only women are going to be in there, like, no, we got to put some dudes in there. If they say they're ladies, we got to dismantle this privilege. What is exactly that these people wanted to dismantle about cisgender privilege that bothered them so much? Because dismantle was their word. So let's go ahead and finish out this video.
Cisgender privilege means never having to be concerned about the laws that are being passed, trying to eradicate the trans experience, trying to take away fundamental human rights from people who do not have a sex and gender that match. Because, yeah, that's happening not out there in the world, like literally in the US, and I'm in Canada, and it's not that much better here. It's just it just trickles down a little bit, or trickles up a little bit more slowly. But literally, the idea that I could be arrested for dressing in the clothing of someone of the opposite gender from the sex I was assigned at birth, this is literally taking away human rights, not just from drag queens, but also from trans people. This is happening in the States right now. We do not have to go all over the world to find these kinds of oppression. If I'm cisgender, I don't have to worry about that. Cis privilege is dressing.
What? So cross-dressing? So first of all, couldn't you still be cis and then be a cross-dresser? So if she's saying that you can't, that it's going to be illegal to wear a skirt or something if you're a man. I haven't seen that bill. She's gonna have to substantiate that claim. You can still be a dude. I think Harry Styles is still cis, right? If you're saying it's gonna be legal for him to wear his dresses over in the States, that still wouldn't be a cisgender privilege thing. It would just be something that's blanket for everybody. If that's the rule, a neutral policy. And again, you'd have to substantiate that pretty hysterical sort of claim. If you're transgender, and you have dysphoria, and you feel like a stranger in your body, how can anyone take that experience away? That's your everyday. That's your reality. How can anyone take that away from you? Regardless of whatever's like past. Like if you're concerned about people taking away the ability to give kids castration drugs, well, you don't have a human right to do that. I would think that's a human rights violation, actually. Cutting off children's genitalia, or I don't know about let's not say bottom surgery, but there are young women. Chloe Cole had her breasts chopped off as a minor. So that's some pretty serious damage done to young kids. And yeah, she had parental consent after they emotionally blackmailed her parents into saying that she would unalive herself if they didn't. So there's some heavy manipulation tactics to get parents to comply to do some heinous things to their kids. A lot of people reacting to fear and go along with all this stuff. But if people are saying we don't think that they should be able to do that, which that kind of stuff isn't a right. I guess you can argue that country to country. Healthcare is, if you want to say that's healthcare is not a right in the United States of America. It's not. It's a commodity. It really is. People cannot like that, but it's the truth. So there's a lot of things people can't get done or do that are cis. So let's finish out the video.
dressing up in the opposite gender for Halloween and getting away with it with no problem, because I can play in this thing when I feel like it. But when someone is doing it every day in their life, trying to dress as the gender that feels right for them, they are marginalized and oppressed for it. This is what I'm talking about when I say cis privilege. It's real.
So Halloween is people can do it for Halloween, which I'm not. I don't like when even when people do jokes and dudes dress up in dresses, and I don't like it. I'm not a fan. I understand that some people's humor. It's not mine. Definitely not mine. I will give you a stink eye. This whole video was just nuts. Again, if people want to dismantle cisgender privilege, what is it exactly about the cisgender privilege that you want to dismantle? Because when I hear dismantle cisgender privilege, I just hear that you want to make life miserable for people who don't see the world in the way that you do. So being able to go to a women's shelter and not have any men there and be in a space that you feel safe with other females and it's sex separated or whatever, would that not be a cisgender privilege? But that's something that people want to dismantle because they believe that trans women should be able to be there, or your bathrooms and your locker rooms and your sports teams. So when people talk about cisgender privilege and they want to dismantle and break down those barriers or whatever, they're saying that it's worth making you uncomfortable and you have to comply, or you're a bad person, you're a bigot or whatever. If you're not open or just really compliant to the, Dylan Mulvaney's or whoever of the world. And it's just not fair. I don't understand why everyone else, majority of people in the world, are expected to lose. And you can't be more compassionate toward the feelings of women, of men, especially when you choose to go a particular way. I've said this many times. If you have gender dysphoria, people should have the utmost, sympathy for your condition. It would be terrible to feel like a stranger in your own body. That would be absolutely terrible. But if you choose to go the route of where you want it affirmed and you want to go ahead and, transition or whatever, that is a choice that you are making. And you shouldn't expect everyone else to coddle to you, to bow down to you, to have to tiptoe around you, to make the whole world like eggshells and glass because you're so fragile. It's just not fair to the rest of the world. And if that is a requirement of the rest of the world, whatever treatment you're getting isn't working. It's not. So those are my thoughts. Let's move on. So yesterday I saw Shazam, went with my family, and I thought it was I enjoyed it, for the most part. I don't want to really get into any big spoilers or anything like that. But what's interesting about the Shazam series, which the character's name is Captain Marvel, but there's different rights issues. Like Marvel has their Captain Marvel, so I'm assuming that's why they can't actually just say Captain Marvel. And they still made it a big thing, like, oh, he doesn't have a name, and at the end, I'm sorry, minor spoiler, like, what's his name? And they're like, oh, it's Shazam. They're like, oh, duh, it's Shazam. And I'm like, that they can't actually call themselves Shazam, because if they say Shazam, the lightning will come from the sky and they will transform back into their regular selves. So they can't actually call themselves Shazam. So I thought that was a silly part to even put it in the script, but because it's a name that they actually can't say. And they totally have it set up like they're going to do a third one, because I forgot at the end of the first one they had like a little spot with this. They had a setup for the next one, but they didn't have any. The very, very end of the first Shazam movie has nothing to do. Like the end post-credit scene has nothing to do with like the rest of the film. Like that's another post-credit scene. So they plan to do another film, but they're not going to, apparently, because James Gunn is resetting the universe because he has his own plans. I have a lot of thoughts about those, but I don't want to really get into them. But there's this, The Rock has loved Black Adam for however long, for whatever reason. I think the reason is he wanted to play him. and obviously he did. And he got his movie made, and he pushed it. And I recently saw Black Adam, by the way, for the first time when I went to Vegas not too long ago on the airplane, and I thought it was okay. It got a lot of hate. I don't think it wasn't like a masterpiece or anything, but it was okay superhero film. I thought it was all right. It was a bit different. Um, I don't think it deserved maybe as much hate as it got, but The Rock clearly wanted to set up this new power structure dynamic in the DC extended universe with him, and there's a scene at the very end with him and Superman. And I was never interested in The Rock and Superman fighting because the Rock has it in his contracts that he cannot lose on screen. So he's the bad guy, which he's more like an anti-hero in his film. And if he's going head to head with Superman, I want Superman to win, and I don't want them to have a little team up at the end. I want the bad guy to lose to Superman. So if The Rock has it like eternally in his contracts that he cannot lose, I think that's a problem. So Black Bolt, I mean sorry, not Black Bolt, Black Adam. Adam is a Shazam is a Captain Marvel villain. I'm sorry, have I been calling Black Adam? Uh, um, he's a villain of Shazam in the Shazam world, but big Captain Marvel. And even in the first film, they said that they picked a champion. They chose wrong. He uses powers for revenge, and that was in the movie with The Rock. And he unleashed the 7 deadly sins that they fought in the first Shazam movie. And I don't think there wasn't any sort of mention of the 7 deadly sins getting unleashed or whatever in the movie with Rock, though. But they have a setup there. But they did not meet at all. They did not talk. And apparently that's being driven by The Rock, or at least that was the rumor. So Zachary Levi had actually wrote on Instagram, the Wrap confirms that Shazam, Fury of the Gods, the Justice Society from Black Adam were recruiting Shazam in the post credits. The Rock denied access to David F. Sandberg, had to make a last minute decision and add Amelia and John. Dwayne The Rock Johnson attempted to restructure the DCEU, centering around him and Henry Cavill's Superman. The Rock didn't allow Zachary Levi to cameo in his post credit for Black Adam. And so interesting that the actor for Shazam had shared that. So he's elevating that. So people are like, oh, they're beefing just in real life. I think it would have. Now, I thought it was cool to see the Superman cameo, though I did know that it happened because I did see the film late. It would have been neat to see the cameo of, Black Adam with Shazam as they are together. And I would have liked to have seen them fight each other because he is a villain. That is his role. But The Rock wanted to do something different, and companies have to. People are like blaming The Rock and that Shazam didn't get like big numbers or whatever. I think I don't know how many people enjoyed it compared to other stuff. I did really enjoy the first Shazam film. I did. I thought it was fun. I thought it was heartwarming, etc. It's not, this movie isn't perfect. I'm not going to go into all the reasons right now why, what the flaws or whatever in it. I just wanted to kind of talk about this rumor between everything. But I think the fact that they're resetting the universe kind of puts a pin, and bursts a bit of the bubble of all this. Because now at the end, I'm seeing you setting up a third film. I'm never going to know what the evil worm was planning or whatever. I'm like, It's over now. Like we don't know what the grand master plan was, you know, because they're not going to make any more of these films. They're resetting the universe. So is anyone besides the Amber Heard drama? Is anyone excited to see Aquaman 2? Is anyone excited to see that? They were probably excited to make it because it made a lot of money for sure, especially in China and other places. Is anyone excited to see that? The first one wasn't good, but I thought Shazam was better than Aquaman for sure. But the test screens for that are just like awful. I have no real interest in seeing the Flash, and I never had any interest in seeing that. I'm only mildly interested in seeing the Batman scenes. But I know they're using nostalgia bait to get people there. And it's not just because of the crazy stuff that the actors did and he's not a good person. I didn't like him as the Flash anyway, and I wasn't really interested in seeing the film. So I don't really plan to see it. But they're going to use that to reset the universe. And The Rock, I don't think they plan to bring Henry Cavill back really. And then there was a rumor that The Rock kind of twisted arms to get him there, and then Henry Cavill announced that he was coming back, and then James Gunn was like, "Now we're doing our own thing. We're not using Henry." So that it's just a mess. It's just really a big mess, and it's crazy to me that I know you have a lot of talent, really talented actors who are gunning for certain roles and positions and stuff with the script, etc. But these companies have really, really big properties that can make a lot of money. And it's just crazy to me how they just let things get out of control like this. I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. And people are still mad about Henry Cavill not being Superman. And I assume people will get over it eventually and just go ahead and, give the new person a chance. But the thing that people love about Henry Cavill is that he's also a nerd. He's beautiful, by the way. He's a nerd himself. And like the woke crowd will try to get him to diss on the fans. They'll bait him, and he's just like, no, they have a right to be upset about X, Y, and Z. They're they invest in the properties, whatever. He cares about the characters he represents on screen. That's one of the reasons why he's not gonna be doing The Witcher anymore, because they're and the people would try to leak stories like, oh, he's so awful because he was so dead set on doing things like the books, and people were like, are you on crack? Like, that's a good thing, and you guys are upset about it. So, and he said he was devoted to doing, like, I don't know, 7 seasons or something like that, as long as they stayed faithful. And obviously they reneged on their deal, so now he's going to do Warhammer, something else that he really, really loves. And hopefully he can do that faithfully and go from there. But poor guy. They just don't do him right. They just don't do the poor guy right. He's just a big freaking beautiful nerd who wants to honor the material, and he's unfortunately living in a world where people don't care about that. Everything is just content, everything is just cash, and they don't really care about their audience or really have a lot of deep respect for them. And that's one reason why I don't read comic books anymore, or I'm not like associated or looking into the Disney stuff, and they just have such deep resentment. And I've talked about it before, so I'm not going to go into it today, but I just thought it was all, pretty interesting. A minor spoiler that I do want to say about the Shazam film, just FYI, and an interesting bit of commentary. One of the kids did come out as gay in the film, and I promise you that is not a spoiler in the film. It has barely anything to do with, it has nothing to do with the plot. And it even, like, he like announces it in a very weird moment. And so we were talking about that, like, that was not like necessary for the script at all or anything. And so my youngest sister pointed out, she's like, it was just enough for representation, but it was so little, it was just enough that if they want to edit it out for China, it's very easy for them to do. And I'm like, uh-huh, I understand. So I wonder if that's why so many, like, times when they'll say we're putting some LGBT representation in there, and it seems very shoehorned in the script, And you're just like, why did they even put that in there? And then people complain like, why are you complaining about it? And it's like, because it didn't seem like it flowed at all. But then you also have people in the LGBT community that are upset because it was shoehorned. So I think my sister has a point. Like they want to be able to go. I just thought it was like a bad writing, like an afterthought. But maybe it's not an afterthought. Maybe it's we don't want to weave this in well because we need it to be easy to take out. So I just thought she made a good point. So I just wanted to point that out. But overall, I did like the film. They had a really good cameo from someone that was probably one of the most useful cameos I've seen. But I'll leave it at that. I don't want to spoil it. I did overall enjoy it, but let's move on. I want to talk about this video from The View. And FYI, if you're watching on YouTube, sometime when you stream things that are from ABC or other folks, it might pause a bit if it gets hit with the copyright. If you watch it back later, they'll post it back fine. But I just want to give you a fair warning if something happens and you don't understand. That's why I wanted to wait till the end. But there was this video from The View that I wanted to address.
Of 2022.
Yes.
We talked about how Florida Governor DeSantis had just filed a complaint against a bar called the R House that holds drag shows. Okay. 8 months later, things have only escalated. As we talk about it, it's constant.
Just FYI, really quickly, if you have not seen his, I don't know the name of the actor. If you did not see him perform at the DNC convention in 2020, it was wild and crazy, like really weird and not good at all. So if you haven't seen that, take some time later to go find it. It was pretty weird.
Aggravation with this. What do you make of the fact that we're still talking about this and that it's happening in other states too, not just Florida?
Yeah,
there's this war against trans people, which
and
is
LGBTQ plus people and people who are othered
and cabaret people.
It's a circle of life.
Yeah. Why are they doing it?
For power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything is about power, and you could always trace it back to the money. You say that all the time.
Yeah. Follow the money.
It's follow the money, follow the power at any cost. It's very hypocritical. The leading cause of death in children are guns.
Yes. Yeah.
They're guns.
So, interesting. So they're talking about drag and other stuff, and he includes like a lot of people. He's like, people who are othered. I'm like, isn't everyone basically othered? I think when he says people who are othered, I think he means everyone except cis white people. Like, so every other person in the world besides them. So everyone's with wargs, I guess it's just with the white people, I guess. And then he goes into this conspiracy that it's about the money and follow the money. And I wanted to pause here because he brought up guns. So now they're deflecting. So before I talk about that, I just want to say it is so weird to me. And I wrote an article about this. I've talked about this before. It is so weird that adults fight tooth and nail to have the drag in the schools or in front of kids, etc. Blah blah blah. And you could say, well, there's clean drag. So there's two different elements here that I think are important to address. And one has nothing to do with the adult stuff, and the other thing is obviously the adult stuff. So the thing has nothing to do with the adult stuff. It's just the nature of drag itself. So RuPaul said that, ironically, it's ironic for me, but maybe not ironic for RuPaul, but it's ironic because what RuPaul did with drag. RuPaul said it will never be mainstream because it makes a mockery out of everything. Class structure, gender, etc., blah, blah, blah. So what drag is, it's a minstrel show. And maybe you like drag. I don't know why. gonna give you a bit of a side eye. But there's adults that I know that are really cool people, seem cool anyway. But they say that they do enjoy, some drag as for adult entertainment or whatever. But not my zhuzh, as my sisters would say. Which I don't know where that originates from, but I just repeated it. So it's not my thing. But it is a minstrel show. But instead of like mocking black people, making black people whatever look foolish, it is a mockery of womanhood and femininity. And you can't say it's in gender. And that's, you have these men who dress up in, feminine attire, very glorified, sort of fabulous. Some of them are creepy and dumb, but their outfits, they'll have very garish, exaggerated makeup and hair and nails or whatever. And but they call themselves queens, and they will refer to themselves with feminine pronouns and stuff. It is a mockery of femininity and womanhood and gender. So I think that's really the big point why they're so focused on it, because when these kids are learning and they're growing up and they're very malleable, I think there's these forces that really genuinely do want those lines blurred. So that's why they focus on drag so much, and they push drag, and they want it out there in the world. So the question is, if you are an adult and you're trying to teach structure and whatever to your kids, is this something in particular that you would want to inform your kids and to shape them? And I don't understand why you would. Maybe if you're a part of that community, maybe I get it. But if there was a group of white people that did a particular type of entertainment, we'll call it a minstrel show, and would you think it was weird if your child's school called them up and was like, hey, we would like you to come to the library and read to the kids? And then they came, then these aren't sexual performance, so they come in their makeup and read to the children, and they talk about being authentically yourself and believing yourself and do whatever kind of lectures that the drag queens give to the kids, but they're doing it, and it's these minstrel show performers, but they make a mockery out of race the same way that drag queens make a mockery out of women. Like, you'd probably burn that school to the ground, like metaphorically or something, but you'd raise heck about it. You'd be upset about it. So if you like drag, you like drag, but it is kind of like a minstrel show. So but adults watch things, or things that aren't always societally appropriate. Sometimes people laugh at comedy that's racist or whatever, and just kind of, there's off color dark stuff that adults like. That doesn't necessarily mean that we should normalize it for our kids. So the question is, why do these people want to do that? Why are they so gung-ho in doing it? That's what I don't understand. Well, I do understand, I guess, to a degree, but I don't know how much thought these people have put into it. And then there's the adult aspect of it, that these are adult entertainers, and people aren't asking them to be involved in around kids, despite the fact that they are drag queens. They want them to do it because they are drag queens, and they're adult entertainers. So why do we want to normalize this for the kids? Again, how would you feel if schools were calling strip clubs and say, we would like one of the girls to come and read to the kids? That'd be weird, right? Maybe that's where we're going to go eventually. Who knows? And they feel that they can get away with it with the drag queens because they're in this protected class of the LGBT. And if you talk about them, then you're just a bigot, rather than someone pointing out some good facts and logic or whatever. They'll just call you bigot. They're protected. But normally, at least right now, we would say that's weird if they specifically wanted strippers or go-go dancers, whatever, to come and read to the kids and be with the kids. But the reason why they want these drag queens in these circles with these kids so much is because they just want to normalize it. They just want to normalize it. And again, if you're going to some seedy place and you're an adult and you're watching this stuff, that's freaking weird to me, but a lot of people do it. That's one thing, but to try to like mainstream it, and you can't say they're not trying to mainstream it, not just because of RuPaul's thing has been on forever now, but Disney has Nina West, the same person who's doing those really raunchy Christmas shows. Disney had Nina West, and Nickelodeon too. They're both promoting this person who I think was a winner, or at least was on Drag Race or show or whatever. They're promoting this person, had them singing a song about pride, and they had the This Is Me spectacular. So they're elevating these people with the kids on a mainstream level. It's not just at the libraries, but these big entertainment networks are having them. And the Blues Clues had it. Nina West, I think that was Nina West also, who had led the drag, this drag queen lead a pride parade on Blues Clues. So why do we want our kids with this stuff and normalize with this stuff? Why? And that's a really important question. But they start deflecting, and they want to go to the drag queens aren't killing kids. There's a lot of things that aren't killing kids, but there are people who are definitely messing with our society. And we have to talk about the long-term ramifications of this stuff and how you want to alter society. Thank you very much for the sticker. Appreciate that. They just want to deflect there. So they go to the guns. So we're at the guns. And he said guns are, drag isn't killing people, but the guns are. And guns are the number one killer of the kids. So we're now into this conspiracy theory about the power, etc. So the number one killer of kids is abortion. That is the number one. And if you're like, no, that's not what kids are. That's not what children are. Children are living, breathing. You do breathe in the womb, not just like maybe not like me and you breathe, but they are getting oxygen, etc. They are alive at conception. A child is just a son or daughter of any age. So the numbers for we're talking about like in the 2000s for ages, you know, like infants onto 17 is in the 2,500 range. And abortions were like closer to 1 million a year range. So I just want to put that out there. If we want to talk about numbers, we can talk about numbers. So and that was immediately the first thing that popped in my head when people say the number one killer of kids. And then he's going to go into Roe v. Wade. So this really goes into a conspiracy because he's saying that people want to get rid of drag for power. Now, I think people want to push the drag and stuff for power. And when I had the conversation the other night with Duncan, he mentioned that he thinks a lot of the pushback from people is they just want to be opposite of the right. The right don't like it, so they got to push harder. And I think a lot of that is true. I think that is true, but I also do think that a lot of it is ideology. You know, that's their community. That's what they want to uplift and push, etc. I get that. But I do think at least in big political circles, or the power behind a lot of stuff, it's about amassing more power because a lot of their political enemies are like evangelical right-wing people, and you're going to come to a head eventually where you're going to have religious sort of rights meet up and press up against a lot of this LGBT stuff, and someone's going to have to go down, and they're hoping it's their adversaries. So let's keep watching.
Yeah. I know it's the morning and I'm not supposed to be screaming, but they're guns.
Yeah.
Not drag queens.
Not drag queens.
No.
Leave us alone.
Yes.
You know, and it's a distraction. It's a distraction on purpose. We don't know what to pay. We don't know what to pay attention to. You know, our justice system is convoluted. It's hard to understand on purpose. Let's be clear about that. Yeah. It's on purpose. You know, it was like when we were talking about Roe v. Wade, that the word codified came up. I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And y'all didn't do it for 50 years?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah.
You know, subpoenas. If any one of us is subpoenaed, and we don't go, we end up in jail,
You
right?
get a little perp walk. You get a little
What
perp
are
walk.
we talking about, and what are we doing? And everybody's so scared because, oh, if we do that, then we might have a civil war. We're already in a civil war, y'all. It's a civil war of the mind. They're messing with our minds. We're already in it.
Yeah. I met someone from Newsbusters, by the way, when I went to the March. No, it wasn't the March for Life. It was Students for Life Summit, and they had a table there, and I was like, I do really appreciate you guys cutting videos the way that you do. And so they're like, oh, well, what do you like? I'm like, I like the ease of access. I'm like, thank you for cutting those videos. It's very interesting. Um, I don't even know what he's talking about. Again, they went off to this big conspiracy that it's about power, and some of like the laws or whatever that people are drumming up and putting in place, some of it could be fear driven, some of it could be playing to base, those are possibilities for sure. But the truth is, and someone asked this question of me, excuse me, some time ago, and I've been meaning to do a video about it, like why do people care about these topics so much, or like the making the videos about Dylan Mulvaney and talking about the transgender stuff, like why does it matter so much to people? And I wish that it didn't. I wish that these weren't conversations. I wish that, you know it wasn't a thing that people had to worry about their daughters competing on sports teams, and being scared that if a boy can compete, they take away their scholarship opportunity, or the wins that they should have, or the records that they should hold, etc. Like, I wish those things weren't happening. I wish that people weren't concerned about who's going to be in their bathroom and all kinds of different stuff. But it started, from my memory, it's got to be a different point at Europe, because they're kind of more ahead of the curve than we were over here. So I can speak to the United States. There was an ordinance about trans people, whatever, in the bathroom, saying that they had to go wherever, and then there was a response to that, and then there was a boycott because of the response to that, and it just got bigger from there. And then Obama wanted to make it so that boys could go in girls locker rooms, etc. So where in the past, maybe if you were trans and you were like passable, that maybe you would have gone to the bathroom, and most people would have been none the wiser, in and out. It became a big thing and a debate. It didn't need to be, but the left, or the LGBT lobby, is the one who pushed it forward and went on from there. And then it continued to go on and on and on and on, So that's why we're here. And we talk about this all the time. It's not that this is news that I love to discuss, but if it's in the news and it's something that people are worried about and something that's being debated about, it's just becomes what we talk about. Like, if you watch my stuff this time, I know it was last year, maybe sometime earlier into the year before, I'm critical race theory, talk about it like every other day, because it was just what folks were talking about. It was in the news all the time, and the people had these hot takes, white fragility and Ibrahim X Kendi and etc. Blah blah blah. And so I was doing a lot of reading, a lot of research, and it was something that we're responding to. And I don't want it to be a reality that we have to push back against Jeffrey Marsh with a big following telling boys and girls that boys and girls don't exist, or that biology is fake. I don't want to have to feel like I'm in a position where we have to say, no, you're wrong. But here we are. Here we are. So back to the original point of the View, shifting away from the drag stuff to say it's about power. And like they brought up the guns as if, to me, I interpreted that fiasco of, they don't want to talk about this thing, so we're focusing and picking on the trans people or the LGBT people. And people are trying to deflect with the gun conversation and stuff, and saying drag doesn't kill people. Okay, but we are concerned about safety, and if you don't think Republicans are concerned about safety, I why do you think people are always talking about George Soros DAs and prosecutors, et cetera? We care about our cities and we want them to be safer, and we don't want to feel like we can't walk down the street without being attacked and stuff. And because it is so unsafe, that's one of the reasons why people fight so hard to make sure that people are armed. Earlier, I mentioned, there are situations, times when, I didn't feel so safe. You can be as raw woman as you want to be, but there is a power difference between men and women. A gun is an equalizer. So people want to fight for their rights because they need them. And the Second Amendment is for a tyrannical government, but it's important to still be able to protect yourself. So the people who are citizens who are responsible with their firearms, they do not want to be oppressed by the government because they want to take away your liberties, and by taking advantage of any scumbag who will commit some kind of awful crime. And then you do it by trying to suggest all these laws that wouldn't stop like a school shooting or anything like that. They're trying to pass stuff in Michigan, and there was a legislator who admitted that the stuff that they were proposing wouldn't have stopped like the most recent tragedy. So you have people trying to legislate stuff that they know isn't going to solve the problem. They just want to make it look like they're solving the problem while they're, treading upon your rights. So I'm all for solutions. I want solutions that will work, though. I don't want you to just grandstand. But our liberties are important, and so is our culture and our society and where it's going. And I'm concerned about the kind of society that thinks that we should be hiring drag queens to read to your kids instead of entrepreneurs and local authors, and having that a cop coming and building connections in the school, and is that they don't think to do that, or they might be against that, right? And they'd rather have the drag queen come and that be, I don't know, what people look up to and aspire when they think bravery. They think of this garish, hulking man in a dress. That's not I don't think that's healthy for society. You can disagree, but we're just gonna have to debate it out, I guess. um and that's what we all have to continue to do. I don't think all of this gender confusion and we're going to a good place, especially since it requires so much threats, so many threats to the opposition, whether it's emotional blackmail or just blatant threats. Like, if you don't comply, remember what you say on social media, because one day we're gonna make sure it comes back and bites you, because we're not gonna tolerate your transphobia one day. Like, we're not living in a healthy society. So yeah, drag itself aren't killing kids in mass. If you want to talk about what's killing kids in mass, there's abortion, but people don't want to solve for that either. They'll say, like, well, we can pay for kids' college and healthcare. They'll say things that are beneficial to them, like not even to just moms, just like things they want in general. Like, they'll have a list of demands, and I'm like, okay, but what about these sort of societal conditioning that would actually lead to less of these things? And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. Or they don't even want to, like, uplift like a woman in crisis and just make it sure that it's known that there are different options for them. They talk about choice. People who talk about choice, if you're pro-choice, I want to pose a question to you. How much time do you devote to the option of not aborting, if it's about choice? Like, are you really pro-abortion, or are you just, I want women to have these options? Because people say they want women to have the options, but there's a lot of people who are very passionate about them having a particular option. Like, there used to be a time when people would say safe, legal, and rare, and it because there's some kind of recognition that abortion isn't a good thing, and if it's not a good thing, we should do whatever we can to try to make sure that is option Z, not option A, B, C, D, like all the way at the end. Like if a woman really, 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 really dire desperately feels like she needs it, um, that's where need to be like, okay, let's make sure that it's available for her then. But that's not how it's presented, especially not from the pro-choice side. So how much time do you devote to women not choosing that option? Because people be very aggressive, like I'm pro-choice, but then they'll really, really, really push abortion. So I just want to present that. Leave you with that thought. Okay. Well, I'm over. I'm going to go. Thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. Check out different merch that we have at the store. Like, let me show a thing or two. I don't have my mouse on me, so I'm just using the pad. I don't love not having my wireless mouse, but we have the You Are Not That Special. We got the Free Canada stuff if you're from, my neighbors of the north. I made these during the trucker protests. Got the black tea mugs, got different stuff. Got the My Money, My Business there. We got the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document. So we're going into spring. 4th of July will be there in no time. So got to get some cool patriotic stuff. So if you like what I do here, you can go ahead and donate at blackteens.com/donate. Across the screen, run my website, all that good stuff. So if you would like to help with the overhead, I appreciate that. Thank you guys for watching live, for lots of comments today. Thank you for the super chat. People who don't know, I am monetized on YouTube now, so you can do the super chat and other stuff. Thank you guys for watching live. That really does help. So, and when you do, chat, that brings other people in. So I do thank you. I did hit over 40,000 on YouTube. So, thank you so much. I know a lot of that is from, people who were watching my shorts and they came over and they subscribed. And then sometimes you guys jump in like, oh, I caught you live. Yep. I stream every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll try to get back to doing the Saturdays as well and get some of my good guests on there that I've had in the past. I was glad to do the interview on Monday with Duncan. And so I'll, schedule and do some more as well. So thank you guys for being in it with me, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.